Hello and welcome to K8sKoach, a StreamCast on learning and coaching for specifically for CNCF and cloud native and Kubernetes projects and learning. And today I have with me Chad Crowell, excuse me, Chad. And it's just a pleasure to have you on the stream today, Chad. And I just want to say my deepest thank you for all that you do. And I do have an introduction for you, but before we got started, I just want to say thank you for being on the stream and how much I appreciate that. And
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
thanks, Chad. And so just to share with everyone who Chad is actively involved in Kube Skills, a project focused on education and skill development around Kubernetes and cloud native technologies. Given his extensive experience in Kubernetes ecosystem and his passion for teaching, Kube Skills likely aims to provide resources, training, and guidance for individuals looking to deepen their expertise in Kubernetes. Through this platform, Chad continues to support the Kubernetes community by sharing his knowledge and fostering growth in cloud native skills. Well, once again, welcome, welcome, welcome. And I just wanted to ask, where does that passion for teaching come from? And we'll dig into Kube Skills, but I just wanted to hear from you. Where does that personal passion come from?
I think that it comes from at a young age, just being kind of the teacher in the family. Growing up during the time that I grew up, it was the kind of adoption of technology in a lot of ways. We had our first computer. We had, first access to the internet when I was, 12 or 13. I remember dialing up the AOL modem. And it stems from there. And then also throughout my career, I've kind of stumbled my way into this industry and just wanted to share what I know. And I go as far as to say that it's my responsibility to share what I know and to teach others and to not hoard information. I'm a firm believer in you just, as much as you can, you should share, bring other people in, pay it forward, and just help everyone learn and grow. And that's kind of the ethos that I live by. And that's what I try to live out every day. And so I'm constantly in that mindset of, how can I take what I know today and help somebody else and benefit somebody else to make the world a better place.
Something you just reminded me of is the original DevOps tenets, which were coined by John Willis, who's kind of a DevOps luminary, and he's written a number of books and done all this stuff. But he talked about how the tenets of DevOps are culture, automation, metrics, and sharing, right? And so we have this responsibility in DevOps, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. To share, and as you said, that's really kind of the goal of this initiative, K8sKoach, right? It's to share this learning and coaching expertise with the world and to help people become better coaches themselves and better learners and better teachers and all those important things. But do you consider DevOps and Kubernetes to be the same thing, or do you consider them to be different? How do you see the world, like kind of those Venn diagram? How much of overlap do you see between the two?
I think you do see a lot of overlap. I think they're not mutually exclusive, but they both share the same principles. And you're exactly right. That's when I fell in love with DevOps and read the Phoenix Project and read the work of Martin Fowler and just started breaking down barriers. And really what caught on for me was the working across the aisle or working across modalities and across departments to become more cohesive in your workflow. I really enjoyed the people aspect of it. So I, tend to lean towards, the community building and the community aspects of it. And yes, I do enjoy hands-on keyboard and contributing that way as well. But I do very much believe and get excited by really the open source community and in particular the Kubernetes community. And this is they share the same they share the same principles in that, DevOps is about, working across teams, across departments. Uh, it's no longer this works on my machine and then, throw it over the wall to developers. We're all working cohesively now. So that's one of the principles that stands out most to me.
Yeah, I love that. Working, you mentioned it, I think 3 times when you just spoke, and it was that working across the aisle, right? So for me, DevOps was always this kind of this future state where the devs would be working with the ops people, but also the database engineers and the network engineers and everyone we working together as a team. And I had this, believe it or not, this metaphor using American football, because American football, really, people don't realize this, but it's a team of individual specialists all
Mm.
working in coordination, right? And my personal definition of DevOps is a technical and cultural focus on teamwork and the software delivery mission. That's my personal definition. But
Mm.
I loved what you were saying also about community, right? And how teamwork kind of dovetails with community, or teamwork flows into community. And I'm aware that you're a CNCF ambassador, and I have to admit I'm not 100% sure what that is, but I assume that's some community work that you're doing. And I was wondering if you could articulate or explain what the CNCF ambassadorship is all about.
Yeah, so I'm a CNCF ambassador. I'm also a Kubernetes org member, Kubernetes contributor, and a KCD organizer, which is Kubernetes Community Days. So that's how much I believe in the community and contributing my time and effort towards that. The CNCF ambassador is a role which you are, you know, highlighting the benefits of just waiting for the plane to go by. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Was there a plane behind me?
Yeah, there's a plane.
Yeah, yeah, I
Up
live
above.
far from Logan, but I live in Massachusetts, far from Logan. I am actually outside. It's not a green screen.
Yeah, but yeah. So CNCF ambassador is just a way to highlight the strength of the CNCF community. Highlight the projects that the now hundreds of projects that are comprised of the CNCF landscape, and share the message and help people learn and grow along with it. And so, as a part of our kind of duties as a CNCF ambassador, we go on podcasts like this and share the message, and also write articles, contribute to documentation, to Kubernetes itself, share share with our community through the local meetups in person, or have meetups just between people in the CNCF Slack or in Kubernetes Slack or wherever. So it's all about kind of being a ambassador, for the lack of a better word, and just kind of spreading the message and spreading the word and getting people on board with open source, and how this is kind of taking over the world in terms of how software is built in the modern day, despite what you'll see at companies like Terraform or at Redis or I should say HashiCorp, and then all the license changes that we're seeing now, right?
Yeah, I forget who it was with Elastic. They've actually backed off of their change from open source. They changed to like a business license too, and then they've changed back to open source. Like I saw that this week, which is fascinating. And I work at an open source company, and so I greatly appreciate it. But if we could just say the different activities that you're doing, so it's CNCF ambassador, and then I heard the CKCD. Kubernetes Community Day organizer, and then there was 2 more that you're doing. And what were they again, please?
Kubernetes org member. So that just means as a member, you get to contribute to the project more closely, and or be involved in the contributor community. And so that involves everyone. I think there's over 1,000 people who are actively contributing to Kubernetes as a part of being an org member. So it means that you can commit code and create PRs and be involved in that way. Either and that means, code contributions or no code contributions. And then the other thing I said was Kubernetes contributor, so that they go hand in hand, but you don't have to be a org member to be a contributor. So.
Oh man, that's outstanding, and I mean this completely sincerely. Thank you so much for all your contribution. It's greatly appreciated, and it's great to have people like you in the community that are doing so much. It's wonderful. Thank you. I think now is a good segue to talk about Kube Skills, and this is a project of yours. And I was, just to offer to everyone listening, I was in the original cohort that Chad stood up, and I went through the program, and it's a wonderful, wonderful program. It's a great way to learn and coordinate and contribute to your Kubernetes learning. And so, Chad, would you mind kind of discussing what Kube Skills is and maybe showing us some Kube Skills stuff?
Yeah, I'll start with a story. Back in 2017, 2018 timeframe, I was involved in a small startup here in Austin, Texas. That's where I'm from. That's where I am right now. And we got my team of just 4 individuals got kind of thrusted into this thing called Kubernetes. At the time, it was in its infancy. Kubernetes started in 2014. So as you can imagine, just building up momentum and seeing rapid adoption, but at the same time, not having a lot of documentation and not having a lot of clear documentation, I should say. And we were very lost, all 4 members of our team. And so from then on, and through the stumbling blocks that I had to get across to learn what Kubernetes is, to learn how to use it, to learn how to use it in a production capacity, because we're migrating our apps from just running on EC2 instances to what was AKS at the time, Azure Kubernetes Service, which was in itself very infant in that it I think only came out a year prior. So we were very much in uncharted territory. And so through those stumbling blocks, I made a vow to myself to do whatever I could to help people not have to go through as much trouble as I did. And at the time, I really wanted a community around me to support me. And that's what Kube Skills is. Kube Skills with a K, of course. And it's a community of over 600 people who kind of collaborate and come together and ask questions and really show up for each other to get you across the line, whether you're in a project like I was, trying to learn Kubernetes and deploy your applications on Kubernetes in a production scenario, to just learning what Kubernetes is for the first time and learning the fundamentals and the kind of the 20% that's the foundation of what Kubernetes is and how it works. So let me share my screen and I'll bring you through kind of what Kube Skills is and my view of how I'm trying to capitalize on that goal. I shouldn't say capitalize, the way I'm trying to contribute to that goal, and try to help people with their understanding of Kubernetes and containers, and also just how to navigate their career in tech as the industry changes so rapidly year after year. So let me present. All right, so I should be presenting my screen now.
Terrific.
And yeah, so first I wanted to bring up that this is my Twitter profile, and I'm not very active on Twitter as of late, but I do want to draw attention to this this post or this tweet that I have highlighted or pinned. And this is a quick little guide for you to get started with Kubernetes. It says, ever wonder how Kubernetes works, but never got time to sit down and actually learn it? Let's change that today. So here's a 10-tweet Kubernetes crash course for you. So this has been, hearted over 275 times, shared over 142 times, and it has been really helpful for folks. So if you're, looking at my Twitter profile and want to check that out, please do. In conjunction with that, or as a supplemental resource to that, there's also this email course that I want to draw attention to. These are all free resources, by the way. So I'm presenting kind of zero cost options for everyone, because to get up and running is sometimes overwhelming. It's sometimes costly. Sometimes you just want to dip your toe in and not necessarily make the leap of faith and dedicate your hard-earned money to it. So this is a free 10-day email course that you can subscribe to by just going to subscribe.kubeskills.com. And so this will give you an email one day at a time. So a day at a time, you'll get an email about a new Kubernetes thing. And as a added benefit or bonus, there's this Kubernetes cheat sheet that you can download and either print out or have a markdown file copy, just as a reference when you're trying to learn your kubectl commands or kubectl commands, however you want to pronounce it. And you can get that for free as well. This is how we can keep in touch. So if you like this podcast and you really enjoy this topic of containers and Kubernetes, feel free to go to kubeskills.com, join the community. So if you just go to kubeskills.com and you scroll down, it's the only button on the page, I guess, other than the subscribe button. But if you click on join this community, you'll be brought to the community, which is a free community. Again, a zero cost option for folks. And you'll be brought in here to our community filled with, like I said, over 600 people who are, saying hello and going through what their wins are. So we're celebrating people, asking questions and learning about certifications. We have a number of free courses, such as the Kubernetes 101 course, or maybe you want to go through a real world project. There's a project course, and various kind of sections of this community which you can get involved in. Most of this community is free, and there are a few paid kind of access areas that you can purchase to get into. But we like to provide a lot of free resources for folks to get, like I said, get your feet wet and get introduced to the content here.
I have to say, Chad, that the email and the tweet based learning, 10 learn Kubernetes in 10 tweets. I find that so inspiring. It's so smart. It's such a great way to get people connected to the projects and get them kind of going. I've never seen anything quite like that. It's really inspiring. I loved it.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. It's, trying to attack it from all avenues, and everyone's coming at this from a different perspective. And I'm not saying that one way is the perfect way for you. So I like to provide options, and you decide whether you want to, whether you want to jump into the community and start asking questions right away, or you want to take one of these courses self-paced, or you want some accountability. So you join one of these groups where we're going through the CKA book, for example, or you want to just, be a casual observer. It's up to you.
Yeah, that's perfect. You're just kind of thinking through it. One of the questions I had prepared for you today was, basically what are the big learning projects that people should be focused on within the CNCF. Like in one of my previous StreamCasts, I had a manager of mine on, and he said, you want to skate to where the puck is, right? Are you familiar with that kind of explanation of Wayne Gretzky and why he was the greatest? He wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the strongest, but he knew he had a sixth sense of going where the puck is, right? And so the idea is, where is the cloud native computing foundation going? Where is Kubernetes going? Is it service meshes that people should be spending time on? Is it database projects? Is it the internals of Kubernetes? Do you have any thoughts on? And I know it's kind of a hard question, but do you have any kind of really like strong opinions about this question?
Yeah, I will provide my opinion, and then I'll also provide a resource if you want to continue to explore this topic, because it's an interesting topic. I think everyone has their own opinion. My opinion is, yeah, I mean, as a individual contributor, which most of us are, and I would assume that most people watching this right now are individual contributors, or maybe tangentially related to this industry in some way. Something sparks their curiosity, but I try to look at it through that lens, and I say, if you're trying to live out that analogy of skating to where the puck's going to be versus where the puck is, I think what you have to think about is how what is going to happen in order for Kubernetes to disappear, because even though Kubernetes is going to be around for a long time, what are the fundamental purposes that it solves, or challenges that it solves, and how can we get ahead of it to see kind of what the next thing is? And I think that's what you were kind of alluding to, whether it be service mesh or WASM or whatever. I think what we're seeing is Kubernetes is the Kubernetes API specifically is the de facto standard, in which is being copied and replicated and used as a kind of a modular in a modular capacity in a lot of ways for a lot of other apps that are being created today. So you'll see like Crossplane, for example, or you'll see the operator framework, which extends the Kubernetes API. So a lot of these, I see a lot of these projects and apps that are being created today make, kind of abstract away Kubernetes in a way, so that we're still using the fundamental principles of Kubernetes, being that kind of essential control loop function, the centralized API, and this series of checks and balances where we're always kind of checking in and replicating our data and our ability to run pods, and constantly checking in to see, is my pod running? If it's not, create a new replica. And that's kind of that control loop mechanism that I was talking about before. But so taking those essential bits and kind of abstracting those away, so it becomes no longer about Kubernetes. It becomes, how can I create these resilient systems, these decoupled systems, distributed systems, if you will. And how can I make all these distributed systems that are decoupled work together in one kind of uniform cluster or fleet, if you will? I think that's where the industry is headed as a whole. It may take a while to get there, but I'm talking like 10 or 20 years from now. I wouldn't doubt that Kubernetes will still be around, but may not be kind of the central focus that we see today. So it may not be the and I think that's a good thing. It may not be an obstacle that we all have to face. And I'm here kind of promoting Kubernetes and have this community called Kube Skills that's built around it. But I mean, essentially, you always have to be thinking of how to work yourself out of a job, or how is your kind of skill set and your abilities and your cognition that you use at your everyday job, how is that potentially going to change? And you constantly have to check in with yourself to see, are the things that I'm doing today valuable contributions, or valuable in terms of my career as a whole? And you start to look to the future and see, and this is the whole thing about community, is what you're able to see this because you get feedback, that constant feedback loop from other people, and that's really the power of community, because you can constantly check in with other folks and see where they are, and see what they see the future being. And then that just you're much more plugged in. You're much more able to navigate your career and really see the future much more clearly. I did mention that I will provide another resource, which is a talk that Kelsey Hightower, the kind of grandfather, or maybe I should call him uncle of Kubernetes. He's not that old of Kubernetes, and he gave a talk at CIVO Navigate, which was in Berlin just a few months back, and he talked about just that, and how we have to change our perception and change our mindset around Kubernetes not being not being centered around Kubernetes. Kubernetes is not the hammer to everyone's nail. And if you look at it that way, it's going to be hard to move forward and look past some of the obstacles that we're going to face in the future in terms of the grand scheme of things and what we're facing in our industry and some of the problems that we're trying to solve.
And I see that you posted that Kelsey Hightower speech on CIVO on LinkedIn. I did notice that posting of yours.
Yeah, it was
So
good.
if anyone finds that LinkedIn, Chad's LinkedIn, and then it would be in his previously posts for on the date of it doesn't say the date, but recently, and today is October 3rd, 2024. I appreciate everything you just said, and some of the things that really kind of bubbled up for me was that cognition, right, and the community, and you see a lot of value in being a community member because it gives you ideas, and you kind of hear about new things that people are working on or are interested in, and are new techniques, right? And that was actually a subject that I wanted to kind of dig into with you today, and it's techniques for learning Kubernetes, right? And
Mm.
I know when we had our pre-session for this call, this stream, I talked to you about a book that I read last year called Building a Second Brain, which was a bestseller for a time, and it's all about taking this kind of concept of code, which stands for collect, organize, distill, and then extract, right? And extract really kind of refers to like
Yeah.
using it, as using a kubectl command. And I've been putting a lot of thought and a lot of energy into a blog post that I'm going to be publishing on how to build the second brain for Kubernetes learning. But I was wondering if you have any tips or techniques, or like I can share a few of mine, but I was wondering if you have any learning techniques that you find very, very useful. And I believe and also, I'm struck by just how darn productive you are. You have all these things going on, and you're affiliated with so much. And so, how do you stay productive? Do you have any tips or techniques for learning for yourself? Is it as simple as focused attention, or is it something more bigger than that?
Yeah. So again, I'll give my experience and then I'll provide some resources after that might be helpful for folks. So yeah, we talked about Building the Second Brain book by Tiago Forte, and he has some amazing methods in which you can implement to not only be more productive, but also eliminate some of the distractions. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned from the book, and also his more recent book, which is called The Para Method, is eliminating the distractions. I can't tell you how many notifications I have, whether it's Slack, whether it's email, whether it's LinkedIn, you name it. It's such a distraction and the killer of productivity. And I don't want to go down the social media is bad rabbit hole, but I think it is important to identify, at the very least, what you're doing every day and what are the potential kind of outcomes and distractions that may come up. So I think at the very least, go through the next 3 days and keep a detailed journal, much like you would like if you're on a diet and you're trying to keep a food log. Go through all the things that you're doing, all the things that you find yourself focusing on at whatever length of time. I think you'll be surprised at the amount of time you're able to, focus on one thing. But also, I think you'll be surprised at how many things that you can eliminate. And so there's this thing called a to-do list, right? How about create a not to-do list, right? So once you've gone through those 3 days and built up a list of things that you're doing overall, try to create a do not list out of those things so that you can eliminate those distractions and really create the focus that you need in your life to achieve some of the goals that you're wanting to achieve. I know for me, I was hugely distracted and was finding that I was starting a lot of projects but not finishing them. And there's a lot of things that got me to where I am today, but it just takes time, I think, and it takes just getting super honest with yourself and really boiling down to what do I want to do? What are the 3 or 4 things that are going to really move the needle today for me, and how can I get those done? How can I take action? Because that's what it comes down to. I realize that I am in somewhat of a privileged position, and that I am living in America, and I am a white male, and that provides me somewhat of a leg up. So I do realize that, but I think there is some benefit to just taking an assessment and being aware of why you're not getting those things done that you want to get done. And I do realize that there are obstacles that people can't kind of overcome. But if you're constantly making progress, however little that is, to accomplishing your goals, I think you're doing pretty good. The resource that I was talking about that I want y'all to check out is the interview that I had with Josh over on the Kube Skills podcast. So it's Kube Skills with a K podcast. You can just Google it. And I had a really nice talk with Josh. And here, I'll actually pull it up right now so we can all take a look at it. And so let me present my screen again. And Kube Skills podcast. So this is wherever you get your podcast. So it's not necessarily Apple related, but we have this podcast here, which is called Systems for Learning, Josh Duffney. And Josh Duffney is extremely good at this kind of stuff in terms of just eliminating distractions. He has one of those dumb phones, and he kind of participates to an extreme, I think, this method of kind of creating these systems for eliminating distractions and really getting done what he wants to get done. And I really admire him for that. And he's taught me a lot of things around, how do we get a grasp on anything, including Kubernetes. In this podcast, we talk about Kubernetes, but you can apply that to not only Kubernetes, but learning a new language. Like he went through this exact system to learn. I think it was learning Go. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he implemented the system to learn Go, and he has a bunch of podcasts himself about or StreamCast or whatever you want to call it on the running containers and how to kind of break down the container runtime interface. It's really interesting. So that's a resource that I could give you, and hopefully that'll help you out in your understanding of how to learn, which is a very wide topic, of course, but it's certainly beneficial to both your life and your career.
Yeah, perfectly said, Chad. I completely agree. Just kind of thinking through what you just said, it bubbled something up for me. And I'm going to preface it by saying I don't know the answer to this question. I don't know if you do either, but what is needed to learn Kubernetes? Do you have prerequisite learning or capabilities that people need to come in with to use Kube Skills? Do you have any prereqs for Kube Skills?
Yeah, we do. So knowing about Linux, knowing how to navigate the Linux file system, knowing what process IDs are, knowing how to navigate the command line inside of a Linux operating system or a Linux distribution. That is a prerequisite. Also, knowing how to use Docker and knowing basic Docker commands such as Docker PS or Docker images, or how to Docker run, how to run Docker containers. Those are really the only two prerequisites. And I will say that it's very, very minimal. Like if you can change directory, if you can change, if you can do a change mod command on a file, then you'll be just fine. But I think mostly on top of that, you have to really understand, and for your own personal benefit too, what problem Docker and Kubernetes solve, and what do containers solve? How is that beneficial in the grand scheme of things? So if you really have an understanding, find your guiding light in terms of, why am I learning this? Why am I doing this? Why am I spending my time, studying for the CKA or studying for the KCNA, whatever you're doing? Why am I contributing so much time and effort to this thing? And through that, I think you'll gain a new appreciation for it, a new understanding, and be able to really adopt some of the principles and methodologies that are sometimes hard for people to get over.
That's a great answer. Yeah, it's something I've kind of struggled with, encouraging people, into DevOps or, the cloud native universe, and exactly where you start where you can, right? Wherever you're at, start from there, but do you see a lot of newbies coming in? Do you see a lot of new people, like people new to Kubernetes in your work? Yeah, you do.
I do. Yeah. So we still see a ton of new Kubernetes contributors in the Kubernetes community as a whole, but also, tons of people who are looking at Kubernetes for the very first time, either coming from a development background, or maybe coming from finance, or maybe coming from, I know somebody, I met somebody a few months ago that they were coming from a construction background. So, it's really a mixed bag. I think when I meet people like that, I usually ask more questions than speak to them, because I'm curious about, what got them into this industry, or why they want to make a career change. But it's everyone's different, and everyone comes from a different perspective, different background, different opinions. And so I'm really curious and want to know, where they're coming from, and also where they're headed, and how I can best help them to get them there.
Well, that's perfectly put. I love that. I think I have one more question and then an anecdote. And the question's kind of a tough one, but and then we'll wrap up, Chad. But thank you. And so something I've noticed about, and it's very prominent for me, is that when using Kubernetes, ever since the beginning, I was into containers before they were cool, right? And so ever since the beginning, I've always felt that Kubernetes makes me feel like a superhero, right? And so what I mean by that is, like, with a wave of the hands, you're able to spin up all these different, all these different containers, and you're able to manage them, and you have high availability and reliability, and you're able to do these very sophisticated things. You leveraging, and you refer to it, the Kube API, right? Using kubectl, I call it kubectl, using kubectl to interact with the Kube APIs, and do really substantially impressive things using operators, right? You mentioned operators, and stand up these infrastructures. But once again, like, it's so different from the, I'm 46. I've been doing this for 25 years, or a little bit longer, and it's so different than the bad old days. And having clusters that are so easy to run, it truly makes me feel like a superhero. And so here comes the hard question: is there anything in particular for you that you can think of that makes you feel like a superhero when doing Kube work, or doing cloud native computing foundation work? Is there something, it might be just amplifying your voice so much with your communities that you're starting, but is there anything that really makes you feel like a superhero?
That's funny that you say that, because when you say that, the first thing that comes to mind is, how do I feel like I'm the anti-hero in a lot of ways. And when I just thinking about, even today, is like restarted a pod, drained a node and migrated that pod to another node. And, I didn't necessarily have a perfect explanation as to why it was running perfectly on this node, but not on the other node. And so it's stuff like that I'm still learning every day. So I guess the superpower that I think that I have, not to toot my own horn too much, but I think I have the superpower of asking good questions. And I think that's the most important skill that you could have in this industry and perhaps in life, is because if you ask the right questions, and we're learning that kind of in real time through using things like ChatGPT and these AI tools to ask the right questions to get the intended result, right? So I think everyone by now, me especially, have a script of and like a physical script of like prompts that I can use, like good prompts that are detailed and multiple sentences that will give me a good response when I type it into ChatGPT. So I think we're learning how to do that better and better. So this is good practice. But I think when you're talking to humans, I think the same thing goes. It's like how and you've asked good questions through this interview. How can we learn from you, Thomas, to be able to ask good questions to our fellow colleagues and people that we meet in the community? How can we, bring things out in people that you wouldn't ordinarily know or find out? And, I would encourage you to, next time you meet somebody at a meetup or a community event, networking or otherwise, ask them, why did you, ask them some really deep questions. Go for it. I would encourage you to say, why do you find this work interesting? Or, what has you pumped up about whatever you're working on, or what are you working on, and tell me more about it. And so doing more asking questions than, talking yourself, I think is always a good method to learn and to grow, and to also kind of expand your relationships in this industry, which I think is the most important part. And that's why I'm involved in all the communities I am.
That was a tremendous answer. And, I think we have to come up with a superhero name for you, like Question Man or the Querier, right? The
Querier,
question,
I like
the query. Yeah. I think you'll appreciate this kind of brief anecdote. In my role, I'm a solutions architect. I have been for a number of years now, and part of my training was to ask why till it becomes uncomfortable, right? So why are you doing that? Why are you doing that way? And then basically it comes down to like, well, Fred, designed it like this, and Fred left 20 years ago, and we've been doing it that way ever since, right? And so,
Yeah.
What I was hoping would connect with you is you have a toddler, and so do I, right? And so,
Mm.
I'm sure you're familiar with those incessant whys, right? The why. I'm sure you've had that experience, And so I think
Every
we have
day.
to harness our inner 3-year-old, right? And
Yeah.
be the querier as much as we can. I just love that answer. And frankly, no one's ever said that as their superhero to me before. And so there's superhero power to me before. And so I just really appreciated that. But
Yeah.
I'm just
I mean, little kids will definitely bring that out in you too. It's like, I always have to ask my questions to my 3-year-old in a very creative and interesting way, to have him both interested in what I'm saying and also, kind of trying to get something out of him.
But I know this is I'm curious. Like, do you have an example? Like, I'm like, I'd love to hear how you're flavoring these questions to get him interested.
Oh, well, pretty basic questions. He's only 3. So a lot of times when he gets home from daycare, he goes to school. He has a class of about 15 kids. And so I always try to get out of him something like, what did you do today? What's, and I do this with my 7-year-old daughter as well. And her I can be a bit more articulate. So perhaps that's a better example. So yesterday she came home from school, and instead of asking her, did you have fun today? Or did you have a good day? I started asking her more intrusive questions. So I asked her, what's one point in your day where you were happy, or that you felt happy? What kind of thing got you frustrated today? What kind of thing what did your friend do today that that made you feel good, or something like that. So I think those types of questions, especially for my daughter, who is very, an emotional girl. She really, she has all the feels throughout the day. So I know that tacking on to her feelings is going to be a good method, but things like that.
Yeah, no, I really connected with what you just said, and that would help me. So you have the future state of a 7-year-old, and so that really, I'm going to file that away in my brain. That was really kind of, because my kids are too young to really kind of dig into that. But maybe I could ask who in their class had a peanut butter sandwich for snack or something. Maybe
Mm.
those kind of more intrusive questions, like you said. I love that.
Yeah.
But once again, it
What
is.
toy did you play with, or what did you who did you play with? I always ask my 3-year-old the people, because I think there's so many kids in this class. I think I'm most interested in who is like his best friend in
Yeah,
class. So I always ask about
yeah.
the people.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. But I think this has been a wonderful session. I just have one brief anecdote that I was going to offer. Of course, it's superhero related, right? And then we'll wrap up. And so I was on a podcast recently with TN Ops, so Total Network Operations. It's part of the Packet Pushers podcast, and I came up with this kind of analogy or this question, right? So what type of superhero do you want to be? And so I'm going to ask the audience, right? Do you want to be Batman or do you want to be Superman? And I argue that Superman was just superhuman based on his skin and the Earth's sun, and he was just superhero based on his alien, birth, right? And so you can never be Superman, right? So you can never try to be Superman. But
Mm,
Batman, through practice and through training and deliberate practice, was the world's greatest detective, right? People don't necessarily realize that. And then he had his toys. He had his not his toys. He had all of his like gadgets, right? That
mm,
gave him all these kind of capabilities. And so,
yeah,
so I just want to offer to everyone, everyone out listening, that through practice and through tooling, you can become a superhero. So
good point. I like that.
yeah, thank you. And I'm just going to wrap it up, Chad. Thank you again. I'll talk to you when we get off, but thank you very much.
Yeah, one thing I want to close with is, where to find me, which I kind of already touched on, and it's right there on the screen if you're watching. Chad M, as in Michael. My middle name is Michael Crowell. And one thing that I want to leave you with is, obviously join the Kube Skills community if you can, and send me a private message in there and say hello, because I always like to hear from folks. And also, I want to get you CKA certified within 90 days. So if you're up for the challenge, please let me know, and we'll go through it together, and I'll be your accountability buddy.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. It was a pleasure, Chad. I'm
Thanks for
gonna,
having me, Thomas.
I'm gonna end the recording. Thank you.